Thank you. Okay, I always want to wait just because you never know who's going to come in. Today's code is a really, really big one. And so the very first thing that I'm going to say is I want to really, some of this may be triggering for a lot of you. And the only reason why I say this is because I literally just went through an experience like this. So some of this may be triggering for a lot of you. So I really just want to invite you to have that awareness that if like feelings and emotions are coming up, get curious about them. This is the whole purpose of this code. So I just kind of want to preface that we're about to get really real on this call. And so just know that if you are triggered, it's totally normal. It's absolutely okay. You have everything that you need to get through it. The more that you can open yourself up to it, the better off it's going to be. So I'm just going to, I want to also open up the chat just so that I can see it. Alrighty. Okay. So let me just see where this is. So we've done a lot so far already in the program. The first code was obviously our belief system and our belief structures around our ability, particularly when it comes, I think everything that I'm teaching in this program applies to every aspect of our lives, which is amazing. In the context of weight though, it's really about like whether or not you believe that you have the ability to achieve the goals that you want, whether or not you see yourself as being able to maintain them. The belief system is really the genesis as to like whether or not you're actually going to be successful. Because right out of the gate, if you don't think that this is a possibility for you, if you're constantly telling yourself that this isn't going to work, then you're right. It's not going to work. And then, so of course, the second code that we talked about was embodiment, which is really about now that you believe that this is possible for you, who do you need to be in these moments? Who do you need to show up as? What are the things that you need to do? How do you need to think energetically? How do you need to align yourself in order to really elevate yourself to that level? And I think that that's what it's really an elevation of like, I'm right here. I want to hit this new sort of like level in my life. And who do I need to be in order to ascend there? And then of course, the third code that we're going to talk about today is radical responsibility. And the reason why this code is so important is because I don't see a lot of it happen in the world, particularly as somebody who is on social media often. I never actually see, I get so blown away by people sometimes because as humans, we have a tendency to take the things that we are feeling and to take our experiences and then to blame other people, situations, and circumstances for them. And so particularly on social media, you see this a lot because like, especially right now, like with cancel culture, it's like somebody can go on their social media platform and, have like a dialogue or do a live or post something. And then because a group of people don't agree with that person, we now feel justified in sort of like canceling that individual and saying like, your belief system isn't in line with what I believe, therefore you're wrong. Instead of taking radical responsibility and saying, your belief system is really triggering me, what's coming up for me? Because I truly believe that like, it's almost impossible. And I mean, like, again, a lot of things I'm going to say in this call are going to trigger y'all. But I truly believe that it is almost impossible to blame somebody or say that somebody is wrong in our society, like in our culture, simply because I always go really big in my head because I'm like, okay, Lindsay, like, I always check with myself. I'm like, is this true? Like, do I believe that the things that Hitler did were justified? Absolutely not. Like, do I believe that slavery, like when we go really, really big, I'm like, okay, so none of those things are justified. But like, if somebody, for example, if somebody is in alliance, we'll use like politics, for example. Like if somebody like really believes that, like, say, like Trump was a phenomenal president, like if they're like, he was the best, he was amazing, he did so many phenomenal things for our country, like we should totally have him back, like whatever. Even if I disagree with that, that doesn't make that other person wrong. It just means that our opinions are different. And it's funny because I remember having Marcus and I were having this conversation with my sister and her wife, because I mean, obviously, like they're gay, they have a lot of like very strong opinions and beliefs about things. And we were talking, I can't even remember what it was that we were talking about. And we got into a very heated dialogue about a specific topic. And I remember I was saying to my sister-in-law, like, I was like, I'm so curious, like, why is it that, you know, you feel this way about this like certain group? And she was like, well, because they're wrong. And I'm like, yeah, but they also believe that you're wrong. And she's like, yeah, but I'm right. And I was like, well, isn't it just easier to say, I have an opinion and they have an opinion and our opinions aren't aligned, but neither of us are right. Like neither of us are wrong. It's just two differing opinions. And she was so, she's like, no, but I'm right. And it was just like, oh my God, like, no, you're not right. Like you believe, and that's the thing. Like, and I feel like the more that we can really start to anchor ourselves in this, the more that it frees up ourselves for a lot more dialogue and a lot less disagreements. Like even with Marcus and myself, like when we have disagreements, maybe it's about like rate, something to do with the girls or something to do with money or something to do with finances. Like it takes a lot of work for me to sit there and be like, he's not wrong, I'm not right. We both have two differing opinions, and those two differing opinions are valid. And so then it's like, how can we come to, like, obviously in parenting and like in a relationship, it's like, how can we come to a middle ground? With a perfect stranger, you don't need to go. There is no middle ground. You can just respect the fact that their life, their circumstances, their situations has led them to a place where they now have this belief system, as has yours. And so we are not different. We are actually very much the same. But because we lack the ability to take responsibility for, radical responsibility for ourselves, all of these different things in our lives can come up that I truly believe block us from ultimately achieving total happiness, total freedom. Because the more that we blame other people for our circumstances, or whatever is coming up for us, or our inability to do something, the more that we give our power away. My sister-in-law is giving her energy away every single day because she can't just like, she has to be right. And so there's a toxic negative energy in her that's like, no, I'm right, they're wrong. And so it's just like, you are in a situation where you are constantly just giving your power over to somebody else, allowing somebody else to be able to affect your feelings, your energy, your emotions every single day. And the truth of the matter is that particularly when it comes to weight loss, no one is responsible for your success. And also nobody is responsible for your failure. And I say this all the freaking time to my clients who thank me for their results. I'm like, they're like, oh my God, Lindsay, you changed my life. I'm like, girl, I didn't do shit. I didn't do shit. You did all the work. I just gave you a roadmap. I didn't do anything. You could have chosen to come into the program, not do the work, and, you know, and not get results. You chose to show up every single day. You chose to do the work. You get all the credit. But in the same vein, it's also like, don't you dare come to me when you're not getting results. Truthfully. And I mean that like wholeheartedly. I will not take responsibility for your success, and I absolutely will not take responsibility for your failure. I will not be held responsible for another human being. that I have absolutely no control over, because it's all up to you. And I remember it was like very powerful. I will never forget this. I can't remember if it was an article or something. And again, it was talking about parenting. My God, so much of this like is a reflection for me with like parenting. And I can't remember, the mother was saying, like, she was like, I will not take responsibility for my child's success. And in the same vein, they will not be able to blame me for their failures. And it's true. Like, if you're not going to take responsibility for it all, like, parents are all like, oh, my kid's so good, and like, they're so smart or whatever. But when they're bad, it's like, oh, you are just such a bad individual. Like, I don't know who raised you. Like, and so it's like, don't take responsibility for any of it, because it's all them. I'm going to talk about this a little bit more. But I think when it comes, like, the reason why radical responsibility is so important is because it then, like I said before, it really empowers you. My clients are then empowered because their results are 100% up to them. I am empowered as a coach because I know that as long as I show up every single day and give 110% of what I've got, I've done my job. And when we think about, like going back to the kids thing, when we think about the kids, I really, and I've spent a lot of money on therapy trying to get to this place, because my ego was attached to my ego was really attached to how the girls, to like to the outcome of the girls. Like, if anybody ever complimented them for being great kids, like, I was like, oh my God, they're the best. And then if anybody ever said they were assholes, I was like, my kids are like, you're an asshole. It's not me, it's you. But I think that's like the thing. It's like, especially with our children, our responsibility as parents is to be able to create the best environment for them to grow, like a garden. Like, you want to make sure that you give them the best soil, the best food and everything, so that they have everything that they need to grow into a wonderful human. Your responsibility is to model, to be a safe space, and to nurture them. What they do with all of that is completely up to them and totally out of our control. And I can like honestly say that because like me and my sisters, I'm one of 3 girls, I'm the oldest of 3. We all grew up in the same household. We all have extraordinarily different lives. We all had the same soil. We all had the same soil. We all ended up very differently. And so my mom and dad cannot take responsibility for, it's true. Like my mom, me and my mom always talk about that. She's like, I would love to take responsibility for your success, but I can't. You did all the work. Just like, if you're going to sit there in therapy and blame me for all your shit, like you just can't. Like, and so I think the thing that I always come back to when it comes to radical responsibility is that the only thing that we can ever truly control in this world is ourselves. That's the only thing that we have control of. And a magical thing happens when you start to take responsibility, like radical responsibility for your life. You start to walk with so much power because you know that it's all on you. And if you have the belief and if you have the embodiment, you know that everything's going to be fine. It means that you are fully in charge of your life. It means that you truly are unstoppable. Because if you're the type of person, again, going back to embodiment, if you're the type of person that figures everything out no matter what, always looks for a solution, keeps going until they get there, like, your success is inevitable. And again, I think it's also really important to say that just because you're taking radical responsibility for yourself doesn't also mean that you take radical responsibility for everything. Like, and what I mean by that is one of the things, sometimes like when I start to think on these things, like I really like overstep, like I always go big. And so what I mean by that is, like, say, for example, if you have a fight with your partner, it's not like the whole fight, you know what I mean? If you're just like, okay, I need to take radical responsibility for this fight. I'm so sorry. We shouldn't have fought. You know, this was all my fault. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking what radical responsibility is like. I was really triggered when you said this. I'm really tired the past couple days. I'm feeling really stressed and under the gun at work right now, and I'm taking this out on you. I didn't communicate this to you, and I expected you to be a mind reader. I'm feeling really unsupported right now, and I really should be conveying that to you and asking for help, or I'm not setting up boundaries, or whatever it is. How they respond then is up to them. They also then have a choice to say, you're right, I shouldn't have reacted that way. Or like, I should be more sensitive, or we should, like, you know, maybe I should ask more questions or improve on my communication, or what, like, whatever it is. And I think, you know, this came up a lot last night with when we were doing our wind down session. And I was talking about my experience with how much the girls used to stress me out. And so a couple of the conversations that we were having were like, you know, in terms of like, I feel the same way. And, you know, like, I want to set boundaries, and, you know, or like maybe we need to, whatever it is. And I think it's very important to do the practical things. And I'm going to explain that in a second. But I think it's also very, very important to do the energetic work, because the practical is helpful, but without doing the emotional intelligence, energetic work behind it, you're still going to be hitting a dead end. It's like the conversation that we've had with food. It's like everybody thinks that this is about the food. It's absolutely not about the food. So we need to go a little bit deeper. So, because I think that that's the biggest challenge, especially when it comes to our kids. In those moments, we have an agenda. And like I said before, we can't control anybody else but ourselves. Our kids also have a different agenda. So what can we do in those moments to then bring down our cortisol? What can we do to reframe our thought process about that whole situation? Because when we think about the practical, you know, we think, okay, I have to take responsibility for my actions. That's what, like, in terms of the practical, that's what I think. We have to take responsibility for our actions. We have to take responsibility for our thought processes. That's more of the energetic piece. And so it's like, in terms of my actions, what am I doing to perpetuate this cycle? And I think the interesting thing is a lot of times, and I'm going to talk about this in a second, one of the reasons, or one of the biggest things that we can do in terms of taking radical responsibility, is be aware of how we feel, how a situation makes us feel. Because ironically, when I was in that situation with the girls, I felt that way for a very long time. And I wasn't taking responsibility for how I felt. I felt frustrated, I felt anxious, I felt stressed, and I just let it continue. And so that's why I think it perpetuated for so long. And so I think one of the biggest things that we can do is, you know, in those moments, it's like, how long have these patterns been there for? Are they changing? If not, why aren't they changing? Are we comfortable staying? And I'm just going to throw this out there, I was really, really comfortable in that phase of my marriage, in that phase of my life. I was really, really comfortable being the martyr. I got really, really comfortable being the victim. I rode that horse a lot. And so it was comfortable for me. I really liked it. It felt really good. I got a lot of sympathy. I got a lot of attention, but it didn't feel good every single day. And so I think that is truly why the pattern for me stayed the way that it did for as long as it did, because I liked it. I was getting something out of that situation. And so the question then became, if I don't like this, why am I not doing the work around it? What am I getting out of this situation? So are you doing the work? And if you're not doing the work, why aren't you doing the work? What are you getting out of it? And if you are doing the work, and if it's not working, then how can we take radical responsibility for that? Is there a new modality that we need to try, like in terms of like therapy, or I don't even know like what else, but like, you know, is there a way that we can try a different aspect of this, like to flip it on its head? Can we get different support? Can we get more support? Like really taking responsibility for what you need and what's going to work for you, because like I've always said, like not everything is going to work for everyone. So I'm going to give you a recent example of something that came up for me as a client working with my coach. And then I'm going to also give you an example of something of two different clients that I've worked with, just to kind of show you the sheer impact of what radical responsibility can have and how it can transform your life. So I am working right now with a brilliant business coach, and I have invested a little over $55,000 Canadian to be in her mastermind. I do not have this money. It's half on credit, half on whatever. I'm not like, I don't want to say like I'm not wealthy by any means, because like I have an abundance mindset. So that just like, I don't want to cancel that out. But I don't want you guys to think like I like have a room in my house where there's like loads of money and I just like throw this around. So this is a huge, very scary, very triggering investment for me. A very big leap that I wanted to make. And so at the beginning of this mastermind, it was very, and I'm like in this community with like 16 other brilliant women, and they're like millionaires, and they're like very high level thing, like huge thought leaders. It's absolutely wonderful space. But towards the end, mid-March, the conversations in this community started to get very like low level, like very bullshit. Like I was like posting pictures of, should I be blonde or should I be a redhead? And I'm like, am I really paying this amount of money to be in this community? And so I really started to think, I don't want to be here. I don't resonate with these women anymore. Like, I don't like this. And then, so there are 2 or 3 other women in the community that I'm like very good friends with right now. And then, so I started to connect with them and being like, am I the only one that's feeling this? Like, how are you guys feeling? Is it just me? And then they started to chime in. They realized that they were feeling the same. And so for a couple, I would say like a couple of days, this went on, and we were like having this like outside chat about like how unhappy we were, and we didn't like this, and I wasn't going to continue, and I wasn't getting what I wanted. And then it dawned on me that I was feeling really toxic about the whole thing, really toxic about the sidebar conversation that we were having, really toxic about the group, really toxic about myself. Like I just started to think about myself, and I was like, this is really like low level energy. This isn't me. And so I realized that I, radical responsibility, had a huge role in this to play. If I am going to invest this money and work with this absolutely brilliant coach and be surrounded by these absolutely brilliant women, and if I'm not feeling supported, if I'm not feeling like I'm getting what I need out of this, this isn't my mentor's responsibility to bring this up. This isn't anybody else's responsibility in the group to table this. This is my responsibility to fix. And so in Lindsay Wolf fashion, I blew it the fuck up. I went into the group and I was like, I really want to take responsibility for the fact that I have been bringing in really low level conversation into this community. I really think that as the brilliant minds that we are, we can raise the bar of this conversation. I don't know who necessarily feels the same, but this is my experience, and I want to bring this here and share this with you. And a lot of other, almost all of the other coaches came forward and said that they were feeling the same thing. Some of them took radical responsibility, others did not. And so that was the funny thing, is that my coach afterwards reached out to me privately and said that she was so grateful that I had the balls to bring it forward, because she also had been feeling very similarly about our community and didn't take radical responsibility for it and didn't table it. And so that was the thing, is like, I didn't want to have, and so since then, sorry, just as like a recap, since then, The conversations in the community have lit me the F up every single day. Like, we are having such a deeper level of conversation that like we weren't even having at the beginning of the program or at the beginning of like our mastermind together. And so like now I'm like, oh my, like my entire perspective of this whole experience has changed. I was once thinking this coach is like absolutely not what I paid for. This experience is absolutely not what I paid for. I am absolutely not going to continue. And now in my mind, I'm like, how am I not going to continue? This is such an incredible space. All because of one decision to take radical responsibility for an entire situation with a million other, like with like 17 other women in there. And I was like, here's my experience. This is what I want it to look like. Here's how I'm going to cultivate it. Reversely, had I done that and nobody felt that way, and like my coach was like not receptive to it, then I can also then take response, you know, again, their experience, their responsibility. Then I can take responsibility for myself and say, maybe this isn't what I want. Maybe this isn't, you know, maybe this isn't the group for me. But that's the thing that we do, is that we go to that low level thinking. That's our default. You know, I'm going to assume that Steph knows that, you know, the vibe of this group sucks and that she isn't doing anything. I'm going to then become resentful. I'm going to have a shitty experience. This is then going to become a story that I have about investing in high level containers that could potentially change the rest of my life. Because since having that conversation, like at the beginning of the program when we were having high level conversations, and since having that conversation, like what's come back to me has been more abundance than I could have imagined, because I changed my energy. High level thinking, always high level thinking, you taking responsibility for everything that comes up for you. I caught myself having low level conversations with other coaches. We were convincing ourselves that like we were trying to make a change, but we weren't. We were just bitching and complaining. And I saw that and I was like, I'm not that type of person. I'm not that type of woman that gossips. I'm not that vibe. I want to have higher level conversations. And I realized I had a role to play. I called myself out. I took responsibility. I didn't even go in the group and be like, these conversations are really shitty. And I really expected more. I was like, I want to take ownership for the fact that like I haven't been bringing high level conversations to this community. Going forward, I want you all to hold me accountable and expect the fact that I'm going to have higher level conversations in this group. And I want to create an awareness around it. Which then gave, and this is another important piece, it then gave the other women in the group, and it gives other people in your life permission to do the same. Permission to take responsibility for themselves if they have a higher level of thinking and take action. And because of that, this mastermind may change my life. It may change somebody else's life in the community. Now, another example that I have is same situation in the mastermind. I realized over the course of the past couple of weeks that like there are a few components of my money mindset that I want to work through. I also realized that in order for me to have these types of conversations, I need to be in a more private container. It's just my vibe. I'm like, I can talk about this, you know, pretty openly, but there are a couple of like deep rooted things that I really need support on. And because I know that about myself, I took responsibility to go and then seek out a separate coach to have a side coaching thing with, to be able to get the support that I desire. Again, it wasn't that I went into the group and was like, I'm really struggling with this and I don't think that you guys can support me and and I'm not getting enough. So I was like, this is what I need. I'm going to go get the help. And I'm finally, because of that, like I'm finally being able to heal things that have plagued me forever because I took radical responsibility for how I feel. I'm going to give you two other examples in terms of like my own experience as a coach. So I once had a client who came in, and from the very beginning, it was from the moment she joined, it was like always like, I'm not getting this and I'm not getting that, and I can't attend the calls, and I don't know where this is, and this is very confusing, and like all of this stuff. And so I said to her, again, because I want to be able to take radical responsibility for my stuff, I'm going to go above and beyond for you. Let's set up a private coaching call. I only do that with my private clients. Let's set up a private coaching call. I'm getting the sense that you feel very frustrated right now. Let's set up a private coaching call. I'm going to work through all of this with you. She says, sure, no problem. We set up a private coaching call, go through everything one-on-one. She feels really good. She feels amazing. We're going to have a reset, blah, 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 blah. And so everything's fine. 2 weeks into the program, stops showing up to the calls again, stops doing all of the things, keeps repeating the same pattern. We do everything we can. Follow up, connect. Now she's ghosting, not responding. There's nothing I can do. So in a couple weeks, I send her another email just to be like, hey, like just wanted to check in, see how things are going. And she sends me back an email and completely berates me. This program sucks. This program's not built for busy moms, blah, 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 blah. I'm not getting the support I need. I'm not getting the help. You guys aren't showing up. And I'm just like, I can't do anything here. I can absolutely not do anything here. There's literally nothing for me to do, because this woman literally will not take responsibility for anything. She removed responsibility for any role in the container at all. So I said, fine. Reversely, I had another client, phenomenal client. From the moment she came in, was just a pleasure to coach. Always a pleasure to coach. She dove in because of her busy schedule. She dove in specifically to the nutrition component of the program. She was like, I really just want to understand the nutrition component. Didn't do a lot of the other work. By the end of her time in the program, like, because there's 16 weeks in the program, by the end of her time in the program, she made the realization of, there's a lot here that I haven't done. I want to come back and I want to do it again. I want to really focus on these components. I really want to make sure that I nailed this. And so she was like, I didn't do the work the first time around. I want to go through this again and make sure that I can actually nail it. Full responsibility for her role in the program and what she did with her time. Full responsibility. Phenomenal experience. Because now she's coming back, she's working on the mindset stuff, she's attending the calls, she's holding herself accountable, like complete game changer. And I want you guys just to be able to feel the difference in the energy of that. Feel the difference in the energy of, I'm not doing the work, and here's what I'm going to do to fix it. Versus, this isn't working for me. Feel the difference. Which one feels more empowering? Which one feels more high vibe? Which one feels more like fucking boss babe? Like, I don't even know what else is, like, which one feels like powerful female energy? The first one. I have clients who message me all the time. We get all different kinds of messages, but I have clients who message me all the time that said, I didn't lose the weight this week. Here's why. Here's what I'm going to do next week. I also have clients who message me all the time being like, I didn't lose the weight this week. This isn't working. What's going on? You tell me what's going on. And granted, for some, obviously, like there's some hormonal issues. So I do want to like just create space for that. But who is taking responsibility for their role in it? I went out for dinner on Saturday night. I didn't lose the weight. I already know what I did. Next week's going to be a game changer. I know how to fix it. Versus, I didn't lose weight this week. I don't know what's going on. What's happening? This isn't working. Did you go out for dinner on Saturday night? Yeah. Why didn't you get the results? Did you follow the plan? No. Take responsibility. Radical responsibility. Because the difference is literally, when I think about it, the vibe is like matriarch. I say matriarch because I think of like moms. Matriarch, queen bee, leader versus Lindsay 2020, martyr. Everything's happening to me. I have control over nothing. And so how empowering, I'm going to go back to that again. How empowering does that feel? I am in control. I am out of control. I create my destiny. Everything happens to me. I don't do the low level gossip. I don't do the complaining. I don't do sidebar conversations. I don't pretend that people are mind readers. I take full responsibility for my role in everything, which means I get to move fast. I get quick results. I change the game all the time. I manage my emotions. I become a clear communicator. I set clear boundaries. And it's all because I'm tapped in to the way that I feel, and even more tapped into the way that I think. People don't know what we need. People don't know what we need. People don't know what we're thinking, and people aren't responsible for our emotions and for our results and for our lives. So then how can we, which is why I really want to have this conversation, how can we then shift this level of thinking? What is like the indicator to say to you, I got to move, like I gotta do something here? I think one of the biggest emotions that comes up is a feeling of frustration, a feeling of being stuck, a feeling of placing blame, like feeling resistance towards somebody else. The moment I feel resistance towards somebody else, I'm like, what the is going on here? All the time now. Like even yesterday, like I woke up in the morning and I was like, Marcus was talking to me and I'm like, I need to be out of your energy. And then I was like, what's going on here with me? What's happening with me? Why do I feel this way? And then I realized, I was like, oh, you said something super triggering this morning when we woke up and it really hurt my feelings, but I didn't say anything to you. Kept it to myself. And now I'm just going to be pissed at you all day. Low level thinking, low level energy. And so when we were talking last night about, in terms of, I'm going to use like the examples that we were talking about in last night's conversation with like, and particularly like with my kids and everything. It's like, how can we shift this? If we are feeling stressed out in these situations, how can we shift this so that we can sort of change the game? Because I truly believe that we have the ability to do that. You can take a situation right now that feels frustrating as hell and you can totally flip it on your head. I posted this the other day in my stories. The thing right now that is your greatest weakness has the potential to become your greatest strength, depending on how you think. And so when we think about, for example, like with the kids and me being frustrated, like I said earlier, so there are two parts of this. There are the practical of the what do I need to do, which is helpful for sure. But then there's also the energetic of who do I need to be and how do I want to feel instead. So the practical part of me feeling super stressed out with the kids was I suck at setting boundaries. And you got to get really honest with yourself, guys, because like, that's the thing. Like you have to like go to those really deep, dark places and sometimes say the things that you don't want to say. Like I am a workaholic and I get more joy and reward from working than I do from hanging out with my kids. So I like to work and I hate when they interrupt me because I'm really good at my job and it gives me a lot of validation, makes me feel really good. My kids don't do that for me. I don't like playing with my kids. I hate playing with my kids. It's boring. It's really boring. I love moms who say that they love playing with their kids, because I'm like, that must be really nice for you. I hate playing with my kids. Some days I do, some days I don't. I don't also like feeling like I don't have any time for myself. And so one of the other things that I realized, I'm telling you, Ashley, don't even worry about it. Oh my God, I want to have so many conversations about this. One of the things that I realized was that I was also darting from thing to thing. So like I was squeezing the lemon because I love my job. I love my clients. I love doing, I'm getting goosebumps. So I know that this is the truth. I love my job. I love my clients. I love doing what I, so I would squeeze the freaking lemon with work because I loved it. It lit me up. And then I get really annoyed when my kids would come in. And I had no time for myself in between that. No time to transition, which is why, Ash, that's what I talked to you about, like in like before. And I think for a lot of us too, now that we're working from home, there is no transition. A commute could be an opportunity, or could have been, or would have been an opportunity for you to maybe like put on a really great podcast, listen to some like amazing music on the way home, like just decompress. And now it's like we're going from one thing straight to the other with like zero time to make that shift, because it is an emotional shift. There is a complete different Lindsay Wolf that shows up at her business every single day. CEO. This is my thought. CEO every single day. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, mom's talking about freaking unicorns and Minnie Mouse. I got to get from there to there. And so a lot of times, like, this looks like me unwinding, me finding my inner child, me becoming more playful. Sometimes me maybe smoking like a little bit of a joint before I go and get them from school, just to be able to just let it go, taking a CBD gummy just to calm myself, or whatever it is. I got to get there. And so that's the thing, is really understand. And then there was the other point too. I don't feel supported by Marcus. I do now. We live in a different life. Back then I didn't. He was always working and I always had to take everything on, and I resented the hell out of him. Resented the hell out of him. So I resented my kids. I resented Marcus. And all I wanted to do all day, if I'm being honest, was sit up in my office and work. Because I got a lot of validation. It was a lot of fun. I got to use my creative brain, and that's all I wanted. So I responded with then practical things, because I was like, that is not my life. That is not my existence. What can I then do? How do I want to feel? How do I want to feel at work? How do I want to feel at the end of the day? How do I want to feel when I'm with my kids? Who do I need to be? So then you respond first with the practical. Shutting off work at a specific time every single day. I have an alarm that goes off on my phone. I know that I like to have a 15-minute window between me and getting the kids. And sometimes I push that window, and I know when I do, I'm going to regret it. Because when I pick my kids up, I'm still Lindsay, CEO, and I'm frustrated. And so they dawdle on the way home, and it pisses me off because for whatever reason, I feel rushed all the time. And so it's like, I had to build in a 15-minute transition from work to life. Todd Herman, actually, for those of you who have read Alter Ego, it's a phenomenal book if you want to pick it up. Todd Herman talks about this in his book. He says, obviously, he's like a world-renowned speaker. He's phenomenal, like brilliant published author. So he comes home, and his daughters, it was so freaking cute, made him, I think it was like a necklace or a bracelet or something like that. And it hangs right by the front door. And so what he does is the moment that he steps in the front door, he puts all of his stuff down and he puts on his bracelet. And that is his brain. That's his signal. I'm dad now. And everything else goes away. I'm dad now. This bracelet, whenever I wear this bracelet, means I'm dad. I'm not brilliant published author, New York Times bestseller, $1 million business owner. I'm done. And so it's about giving yourself those kinds of tools to be able to shift and transition, and allowing yourself the space to do it. Keeping your phones and laptops away at night works. In my experience, doesn't work for that long. Every now and then we rock and roll for a little bit, but it's like, we always go back to that default lower level thinking, at least in my opinion. So It's a really good strategy. But sometimes, like I always find, like then you have a deadline and then it needs to come out. Like there's always like a reason and then it just kind of snowballs. So again, it's about setting really firm boundaries. The other component is then how can I make playing with my kids fun so that I enjoy it more? How can I be responsible for my relationship with my children and give them the joy that they want, and then also me have the joy of being with them and doing that? So again, all of the practical things, but from an energetic standpoint, it's like, then we need to explore, why don't we have boundaries? Why don't we have boundaries? Why are we hesitant to build them in? Why do we feel a pressure with time? This is a huge one for me that I work on all of the time. How do we feel in relationship with time? Because I'm going to tell you this right now. A few weeks ago, I will never forget it. I don't think I sent Gail an email so fast. I was listening to Sienna and Maddie do something, and Maddie or Sienna said something like, I can't, I'm really busy. And I was like, oh shit, that's me. That's me. And Marcus too. But like, I was like, why would a 3-year-old ever say, I can't, I'm really busy? Modeling. And I remember I called Gail. So it's like I sent her an email and I was like, we need to have a session about this. My 3-year-old child is telling people that she is really busy. And I know that this is a direct reflection of as to like what she's getting at home. And so I realized that on so many different levels in my life, I was rushing all the time. I was rushing all the time. My vibe was like, I'm very busy. I would say it to the girls, like even in the morning going to school, it would give me like immense amounts of anxiety. And I would get so frustrated because I would leave myself a specific amount of time to like get them ready, get myself ready, get out the door. And 9 times out of 10, it resulted in like me screaming and yelling and like tears or like whatever. This was our mornings. And I said to Gail, I don't want this. I don't want to feel this way in the morning. I don't want to start my days like this. I don't want the girls to go. Like, I'm supposed to be the safe space. I'm supposed to be home. Like, nobody wants to be battling on the way to school. And so I had to really think about that. What is my relationship with time? Do I feel like I'm constantly running out of it? I did. I never felt like there was enough time. And then what I realized was, thank you, Gail, that actually isn't my energy. That's not my energy that I'm carrying. That's my mom's vibe. That was the vibe that I grew up with as a child. And so again, I can't blame my mom for that shit. That's like her experience. So I then have to take radical responsibility for myself. Is this an energy that I want to carry? Do I want to be the mom that's always in a rush, looking at her time, like, you know, looking at her watch, being like, we've got to go. Like, no, I don't want that to be my vibe. And so I then had to stop and think about it. Thank you, Gail. What happens if they're late for school? Nothing. I don't care if Madison's in JK or if she is going to university. Nothing ever happens when we're late. If I'm late for a call, if I'm late for one of these lives, if I'm late for an appointment, what is the worst thing that has ever happened to me? I mean, sometimes if I was ever late for, like, if I'm late for an appointment, the worst thing is maybe they cancel my appointment and I have to reschedule. Nothing truly bad happens. And so I have to accept the fact that my experience of time is within myself, meaning the only thing that I can control is my emotions. And so if time stresses me out, that's on me to not only work with my emotions, but to reframe time in and of itself. Because now, truth be told, which is so funny. Thank you, Gail. So funny. I've really reframed the mornings. And now I'm like, who cares if the kids are late? Who cares if they're 5 or 10 minutes late for school? A lot of times I'll even say to Madison, because she's just like, she already has like such a little ego about her that she hates being late. Like, and so like if you say to her, okay, so we're just going to be late then. Like if she's really pushing her boundaries and you're like, okay, so we're just going to be late and you're just going to have to walk in late. She doesn't like that anymore. Natural consequence. She's like, mommy, I don't want to be late. I don't like walking in late. Everybody looks at me. I'm like, well, you better get your ass, better get your ass ready for school then. Like, but that's the thing. I have released the anxiety. I don't want to say I have because it obviously comes back. It's a work in progress. But I've really done the work to release the anxiety around what happens if I am late. Because here's the interesting thing. The moment that you let go of the stress, the moment that you let go of the anxiety, the moment that you realize that you can control your experience in time, it feels like you have all the time in the world. Because if we think about the vibe of like, if you're rushing, if you're running late, and you know what I mean? Say you're getting ready, say you're running late in the morning and you're like doing your mascara and you're like, whatever, you are for sure going to poke your eye out with your mascara. You are for sure going to burn yourself with your straightener or your curling iron because you're rushing, which then inevitably makes it even like it takes even more time. Whereas like if you're chill and if you feel like you have all the time in the world, you're way more efficient. You move way faster. Things happen exactly as they should. And so, yes, the what of what we need to do is important, but it's also the how do you want to feel? Who do you want to be? And the vibe, and I just want to stress this as always, it is not judgment or shaming yourself. Never. It's always curiosity. Why do I feel like this? Why is this happening? Why is this my experience? How can I change it? So your challenge for today, your homework for today is I really want you to explore where those feelings are coming up. Like, where do you feel frustrated? Where do you feel stressed out? Where are the areas in your life where you don't feel supported? Where do you feel like you don't have enough time? And where can you take more responsibility in those things? How can you shift them? What do you need to do? But also, who do you need to be? How do you want to feel? Because this is the funny thing that I always come back to, like, particularly when we think about like dieting and weight loss. Is it the diet's fault? No. Maybe you're picking fucking stupid diets. Like maybe you're doing keto. Like, come on, you know this. I don't have to tell you this. Is it the food? No. Are you doing the work around the food? Are you getting the help that you need? Are you getting the support? Are you getting the knowledge? Are you getting the education? We could go through every element of your life right now, and it will always come back to you. Which is why taking responsibility, radical responsibility for yourself, is the third code in terms of being consistent. Because when you do that, you empower yourself so much that nothing else gets in your way. Nothing else will ever get in your way. So take the time today, again, radical responsibility, carve out the time for yourself, and really start to explore this in your own life. Really start to see where this is coming up for you and how you can begin to not only shift it from the practical in terms of like, what do I need to do? But really start to say, ask yourself, who do I need to be? How do I want to show up? How do I want this to go? Because once you can start to do that, you also start to unpeel the layers of, is this true? Like my story with the time. Is this true that I don't have a lot of time? No, I just need to build up my mornings a little bit better, practical. And then I need to let go of that pattern because it's not serving me. So in the morning when I feel stressed, I'm like, I got all the time in the world. Everything's fine. If the kids are late, it doesn't matter. If I'm late for my meetings, it doesn't matter. All of the things will continue to move as they will. Same thing at the end of the day. How do you want the end of your day to feel? How do you want the midpoint to feel, the transition period to feel. What can you do for yourself? And how do you want to feel with your kids? Yes, playing with them is so freaking boring. I really want to write a book on all of this. It's so funny. I read an article the other day and a mom was like talking about the fact that like she didn't like playing with her kids. And she was like, 90% of the time I really love playing with them. And like 10%, like I really hate playing. I'm like, I call total bullshit on this. That's like 40-60, friend. Let's be honest. If you don't like playing with your kids 10% of the time, that doesn't even make sense. It's not fun. But there are always ways that we can make it fun and ways that you can support yourself in that. So that's your homework for today. This is a huge code, very triggering. I'm so happy for all of you, excited that you're able to hold space for this conversation, and really, really proud of you for doing the work. So with all of that being said, I'm going to let you guys go, and I will see you at 2 for just a midday check-in, a little bit of breath work, a little bit of a chat, and we're going to keep going. Okay. Love you guys. Have a good one.